This Choircast podcast is brought to you by The Collective. At The Collective, we believe that justice isn't optional, it's actually sacred. That's why we're building a growing library of progressive resources, connecting you with queer and Black-owned businesses, linking to books that challenge the status quo, and delivering content that empowers you to resist fascism with clarity and compassion. So join the movement. Support the mission. Visit The Collective, that's QUOLLECTIVE.com, The Collective, to learn more and get involved.
You've wandered into Snarky Faith, the place where American Christianity gets skewered, roasted, and served cold. Faith on the fringe, naming what's broken, keeping what matters. Strap in. This is Snarky Faith.
Previously on Snarky Faith.
So the crews don't feel safe with you.
They don't feel safe?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know the message of Jesus Christ was unsafe. Wow. Do I have any guns or anything like that? No, I don't. So freedom of speech is not safe? So if I said something else, would that be okay? I'll tell you what this is. It's called spiritual warfare. You know why? Yeah, because demons don't like the name of Jesus.
That was fun, and today on Snarky Faith, we're going to be talking about finding your voice, but not like that. Because you know what that was? That is the rise of what we're being able to see more and more these days of the sky evangelists. These assholes that occupy space when we're captive audiences on planes to share the gospel. And they often get kicked off planes because, oh no, persecution is happening to me because I preach the gospel, because I'm all about the gospel. No, you're not about that. You really need one of these shirts from Snarky Faith. We've got more shirts like that if you're interested. Just go to snarkyfaith.dashery.com. There's a lot of fun, colorful shirts there. But I'm your host, Stuart Deloney, and this is Snarky Faith, and today we're going to be talking to my friend KD McCrite about finding your voice. If you like what we're doing here on Snarky Faith, hit like, hit subscribe, do those other things. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk with my friend KD. Today I'm talking with author KD McCrite, an Ozark native writer whose work has spanned children's fiction, mysteries, thrillers, and the paranormal. She grew up in a deeply religious environment where creativity, obedience, and fear were almost constantly intertwined. And today we're going to talk about that and what it does to a person's voice, imagination, and sense of self. So welcome, KD.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to have you on here. It's always fun to be able to have other writers and people that are kind of like my virtual friends. To then be able to put like, oh, now I guess this is still virtual, but it's a little less virtual feeling.
I knew when we became friends on Facebook, I thought, I love everything he has to say. So I feel like you're my brother, or at this point, probably my son. But you know,
I'll take either. That's great. So tell us where you coming from. I know you're Ozark native. So where are you in the Ozarks?
I am in the town of Harrison, Arkansas, about 30 miles south of Branson, and we're right in the heart of the mountains.
Oh, that's
and
beautiful
it's
country.
Beautiful here.
Yeah.
We're just a little ways away from the Buffalo National River, which is the first and only river that is part of the national park system and protected along there. And it's beautiful. You've got to come and visit me sometime.
I will do that. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I mean, it's I've already said this on tape, so I'm potentially locked into this. It was almost a contract. You walked me into a contract there. Now, when we were talking before and stuff, and you've shared some of your story with me, but you grew up in a pretty religious environment. As you would say, a strict religious environment where being good was like everything. And so can you unpack that? What was it like growing up in the Ozarks in a very strict religious environment? What was your childhood like in faith formation?
Well, my childhood was fine, except that I didn't know anything other than the church, because I was like 6 weeks old when my folks took me to church the first time, or 3 weeks old or something like that. And the church never bothered me too much. And it was an evangelical church. I won't mention the denomination, but same one Tom Ward was in. They put it that way. And while it's a wonderful church, I absolutely loved that church growing up. But it was actually my mother, God bless her soul, who was just so religious, and she just had so many restrictions. If it was fun, if you got any kind of pleasure out of it, if it was nonsense, if it was a big joke, if everybody's having a good time, we went to a Cardinals baseball game one time, and she said that she sat there in the Busch Stadium hoping the Lord didn't come back and catch her there. God bless her.
Oh, so do you feel like, was she passed on that fear? So she was always worried that.
Yeah. I have an older brother and sister, and they did not have the same kind of rearing as me. I don't think that Mom and Dad were going to church very often back when they were little. Like I say, I was when I'll just give you this kind of weird little story that she told me, that my brother was 10 and a half and my sister was nearly 13 when I was born. And at one point, about 10 months before my birth, or 9 months before my birth, my mom, excuse me, I've got dog hair in my mouth. My mom felt compelled to take a walk in the woods. Now, I lived on our farm was about 250 acres and lots and lots of woods and lots of hills, and it was a wonderful place to be. And she was out walking in the woods, and she told me this when I was about 14 or 15, that she felt the Lord really wanted to talk to her, really wanted to tell her something. And so she was open to it, and she felt like he was telling her, you need to have one more child. I have a purpose for that child. Well, it turned out to be me. And I really feel like I really disappointed her greatly. I mean, I was a kid that I didn't see the world the same way as everybody else around me. And I think maybe that came from spending so much time by myself, because we had no children in the neighborhood. We lived way out in the country, and the only kids I ever saw were the ones at church. And she told me that story because she thought it would make me feel better about a time that I didn't get invited to a party that all my friends got invited to. And she says, well, you're special. But the problem with being told you're special, I just worried after that I was never going to live up to that, because I felt the only thing I wanted to do was be a writer. And I didn't want to be a minister, and women ministers are encouraged in that denomination. I didn't want to be a missionary. I couldn't see myself being anything church related. Not that I disliked the church, or not that I have anything, even to this day, I don't have anything against the Lord or God or Jesus or universe or however you want to say it. But I just felt, what am I supposed to do? And I was just constantly making mistakes, and everything I did was wrong. And I just ended up having just about this much self-esteem. And beyond that, the rest of it was down here, And they did not want me to be a writer. Absolutely not. Absolutely
what?
not.
So was it just like women having a voice, or why was this not a writer? What was the issue? Oh, okay.
I have no idea. It was just, I had young nieces that were just a little bit younger than me when I was growing up, who would come from wherever they were living at the time and would come and spend a week or so with us. And I would always just tell them stories and entertain them. And they can remember this day stories that I told them that I don't even recall. But after a while, it just seemed to me, why my mind is so full of all these people and all these events and all these places. I need to share these with people, and I'll just be a writer. I'll be a writer when I grow up. And I was about 12 years old at that point. And I never sought to do anything more than that I've had other jobs and I worked other places and I went to college, but I didn't really want that degree. And I hated every job I had, which I had great jobs. I worked in the library, I worked in the bookstore. I wanted to be home at my desk writing. And I'll just tell you, and then my husband, he did not want me to write. That's not my husband I'm married to now. But he didn't want me to write. He wanted me to get a real job. And oh my goodness, it was a hard road to hoe.
It was, but something kept. Well, so what kept? But something was still in there that you wanted to keep going, and you really needed to get your voice out. And so, was there a time when did it what broke or what changed in you where you're like, I have to do this?
Well, I was always doing it during junior high and high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to college, of course, I didn't do much of that then. And then when we got married, I didn't have a typewriter or anything to use. I borrowed one. I think it had a broken E on it. And it was one of those really old, big jobbies that looked like something that John Boy used, just a really old thing.
Mm-hmm.
I borrowed that and wrote my first book. Well, I wrote a play for the church. And this was a little church here in town that we were attending. And that church was packed out, and everybody came up to me and said, you need to be doing this. You need to be writing these things. So,
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of solidified everything in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I borrowed that one typewriter that I'd written the play on, and I wrote a 700-page first novel in about 6 weeks. So when I'm
Okay.
telling you that first-time writers will write books like this, yeah. And I was just thrilled with it, but it was worthless. It was not a good story, but it sure got me going.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's you're finding your voice as you're moving into this as well,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so, but did that so you beginning to start doing that? How did you get pushed back from your parents as you start writing as your first husband as well, too?
Yeah, my mom says, "Oh, you don't need to be doing that. You've got kids to raise. You don't need to be doing that. You can sew clothes for your kids and make their meals and take care of your house." And which was odd because she worked the whole time I was growing up. So she wasn't a traditional housewife at all. And my dad would get so exasperated. And he says, if you're going to write stuff for church stories, write church stories.
Okay.
And I'd say, I don't want to write church stories because there's nothing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, like the little stories that would come out in your, I don't know if you were Baptist, right?
I grew up Southern Baptist, yes.
And didn't they have these little handouts that they would give you every week, like,
yeah, little Sunday school pamphlet handout things, yeah.
Yeah, and it would have stories and things in it. Yeah, that's what they wanted me to write for.
It's exhilarating, K.D., right? Because come on, like you have a voice, and the church just sees you as. It's so amazing when the church is like, well, hey, we can put you in this tiny little corner here and do this tiny little thing, and it makes us feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So we'll give you that much.
You couldn't write a realistic story with that because
Yeah.
nearly I don't know about your leaflets, but every story that I read in those books were there was new people moved into the neighborhood, and the lady living in the house took them a cake or a casserole and invited them to church, and that was just basically the story over and over and over. So, there was nothing fun, nothing conflicting, nothing. It was just, and it's like, let me tell you something. You cannot, if you were raised the way I can, you cannot write with your mother looking over your shoulder.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The judgment too.
And don't let me be hateful about my mom. I'm not meaning that at all. I loved her. She was a dear, dear, dear person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she loved me and she thought she was doing the right thing. Her focus was on getting my soul saved and into heaven safely.
Mm-hmm.
And in our church, it was not a eternal security. You could lose your salvation if you picked up a cigarette and smoked. You're going to hell.
Yeah, so that I mean, did you feel that fear? Because having salvation like that is something that is like not your mom breathing down your neck, but is God's constantly breathing down your neck. If you constantly are doing one thing or this or that, or you step this way instead of this way, somehow God's angry.
Look at God like that.
Okay.
I believed in the goodness and the love of the Almighty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how could you not when you look at everything around us?
Mm-hmm.
And the life of Christ and everything that he stood for and everything that he said and everything that he taught, there was not any room for fear of God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the person I was afraid of was my mom.
Okay.
And some of the people in my church, they were extremely judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think my mom was being judgmental. I think she was just being overly protective because she wanted to make sure I went to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, as any good mom should, if you know.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
I just think
yeah.
she took it too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then I had no experience of the outside world until I went to college, and it was just like, you know, people are smoking and they're saying damn and hell. You know, it was just, I didn't mind it, but I had just not been around it,
Mm-hmm.
and it took some adjustment. You know, so.
So what you talked about? You wrote this long first book. Did it ever get published?
No.
Okay. So where did you where did you actually start? What was your actual start in publishing?
Well, this is a long time ago. I wrote, Stuart. I wrote for 11 years without getting one word published, and I wrote
Okay.
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was constantly reading about writing and trying to improve myself. So,
Okay.
you know, I was self-teaching. I didn't take classes in writing, and I had to teach myself. So it took me a while. I believe my first book was like my 10th or 11th book that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a meeting in Branson. It was a group called the Ozarks Writers League, and I think it's still in business. But they would bring in people from New York, agents and editors and publishers. And I listened to this one gal, and I thought, there is a book in my desk that might fit that. And so I just went up to her, and I said, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And I told her that story, and she said, send that to me. And I sent it, and I didn't expect anything because I had this many rejections on everything I'd written so far. And on April 1st, about 9:30 at night, I get this call from her. And she says, we want to publish your book. And I said, wait a minute. This is April Fool's joke, right? Because I just thought it was somebody pulling my chain. And she says, no, that's what it was. And she said, if you got anything else, send it. And blah, blah, blah. And so I wrote 3 books. But that was Avalon Publishers. Do you remember seeing those in the library? It's not even a publisher anymore. But they sold exclusively to libraries and paid money was pitiful. But at least I had 3 books to my credit. And that was back. I was back in the Stone Age. I was about 91, I think, was the day that one got published.
So was this general publishing, or were you in Christian publishing at this point?
No, that was just. It might as well have been Christian because you had to keep it clean and no sex, no curse words, no killing, no nothing like that. Just very sweet. And I did that. I knew I could do it because I've been doing it all this time. And, you know, and then I kind of had a life break, I guess you could say. And my husband and I got divorced. And it was a long time before I continued to write just to keep my brain active, but I didn't write anything very good. About 93, it was about 2010 when my agent sent this one book that I sent you a part of, In Front of God and Everybody. She sent it to Thomas Nelson, the largest Christian publisher in the world at that time. And I had told her, please don't send any of my work to Christian publishers because it narrows the readership so bad. People don't, the people who don't read Christian stuff are not going to pick up a book from a Christian market because they're going to think it's preachy. But she did it anyway. And Thomas Nelson was such a big publisher that when she sent me that acceptance letter, I just said, okay, let's do it. I had a big fat advance and everything, and ended up winning a really nice award and everything like that. But it was still Christian publishing, and I get if you go to Amazon sometime and read some of the 1 and 2 and 3 star reviews, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's not Christian enough. These girls in this family fight with each other all the time.
So, wait, you're saying Christians have a bunch of grievances? What? Even back then, they were upset and full of grievances.
And well, the two sisters are completely different. The older one is she thinks she's sophisticated, but she's not very smart. She's very beautiful, and she's, in the book, she's about 14, 15 years old. Okay, now she's the snooty sister. The main character is April Grace, and she is a free spirit. She says what the rest of us are thinking, and she just blurts it out. Gets herself into all kinds of trouble. She doesn't mean to be getting people in trouble. But she and her sister, because they're such two different people and they have different life expectations and different values, and they're just constantly doing this. It's much more interesting than a couple of sisters going, "Oh, sister, would you like to have a cookie? Let's take a walk." You know, what the heck is that? You know, there's nothing going on. And I wanted a book full of conflict and humor. You talk about snarky humor. April Grace is full of snarky humor. But I had not written that book for a Christian market, and I had to take out some things when they got a hold of it. And plus, they wanted to put it, I had written it for adults, secular adults, and they got in touch with me and asked if I'd be willing to do it for kids. I said, okay. Then the editor got in touch with me and said, "You're going to take some of this out of here." And references to the neighbors who grew pot. That's how they made their living. April Grace catches her grandfather's boyfriend going through her private stuff when he thinks nobody's home. And I titled that chapter, "Mr. Rance Gets in Grandma's Drawers." I had to change that.
So apparently they didn't know what they were getting into when they signed you on for this.
And there was a place where the old hippies that lived down the road from them, the ones that grew the pot, were just, they dressed like hippies, they looked like hippies. And I said something about, her name was Temple. Temple was running across the yard, and she never wore a bra, and her boobies were long and skinny and swinging like two tube socks on the clothesline.
It sounds like Thomas Nelson stuff. Yeah. Excuse me.
And then Focus on the Family got a hold of the book, and they did a word by word by word practically. But at least some of that stuff wasn't in there.
Oh my gosh! So, good Lord. Okay, that is good. So
see the battery.
Yeah. So how long did you last in the traditional Christian publishing bubble?
When I first talked to Thomas Nelson, they loved April Grace so much that they said, "Can you grow her up slowly? We'll take her from this age. We'll take her right on up into where you can write young adult novels. Just grow her up slowly, just a few months at a time, and we want one every 6 months." And that didn't happen. I won't get into all the problems with it because I'm not sure I understand it myself. But I really think had they continued to publish those books, they would have put my name in. I would have made something. I would have made something of myself. And those books might have gone into some kind of any of those other children's books has been made into little movies and stuff, because the stories are just rich with that kind of thing. And
from there, then, so you were writing your children's books, you're doing like Christian publishing, then you also get into other stuff. You get into mysteries, you get into thrillers, you get into paranormal. So what was that? Just a natural progression of you, or was that different publishers or different interests?
That was kind of something I fell into. I can't remember if I just finished April Grace or was about to, and the editor of a magazine up in Branson that I had been writing for got in touch with me, and he said, "Would you be interested in writing mysteries?" And I said, "Well, tell me more." It happened to be that this guy was working for Annie's Publishing. You're probably not aware with Annie's Attic, but there was a huge, really old crafting. They published craft books on quilting and knitting and tatting and all kinds of things like that. And they wanted to go into a fiction line. And so he wanted me to write a mystery story, because that's what they were going to do. They were going to do mysteries. And I said, sure, I can do that. I'd never written a mystery in my life. I didn't even know what a mystery was, hardly, because I didn't read them. But I just said, sure. And I ended up writing 15 books for those people.
Oh, wow. Now, was it just strictly because you were saying like they originally doing like books on crocheting and knitting? So were these like mysteries? They're like, can you like slide in some knitting or crocheting into every mystery?
The first one was called. They're right over there. All that. Annie, it's Annie. Something in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Everything needed to be a mystery found in the attic. And
Okay.
yeah. But the thing is, they were also very restrictive about what you could write. Because they were a Mennonite, I believe, Mennonite company.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's who who owns it, or did own it anyway. So, but I could do that. It's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to write those 3 books that Avalon picked, the ones that sent them to the libraries. I wanted to write more of April Grace. But Ken got in touch with me, and come to find out how serendipitous was this, Ken and I had been really good friends in college, and we took classes together. And here he was the editor for this company that was located out in Indiana or wherever it's from. And so, and he doesn't live too far from me. I had no idea that he was doing that. And so it was, I wrote 15 books for them. Then I had cataract surgery, and I could not see well enough for a while to do anything. And when I came back and said I'm ready to get them my next contract, they just didn't renew it. So
when did you get to that place? Where you finally started feeling like you were free to write what you wanted to write, free to write in your own voice?
Well, I did write a couple books in my own voice. That one that I sent you under a false name.
Okay.
I didn't figure anybody would ever read it. And the one that came before it, which the title of it was If I Make My Bed in Hell. And it's a book about a woman raised in a Christian cult. It's just like as bad as any Christian cult you could think of. And except it was overseen by a woman, which made it kind of really even worse probably. But I didn't think anybody would ever read it. But I wrote it, and then I wrote the next one, and I had originally titled it. I was going to take all my titles from the Bible because both of them had, and I wanted to write more books like that, had in it. And Poured Out Like Water is the one that you have, but the publisher that took it didn't want me to use Bible verses, and so she chose that name, or I chose that name, or well, I don't know, maybe it's a collaboration. I didn't think it was a very compelling title, but okay.
So how is this? How this whole thing? Because a lot of this is like part of it is your journey into like learning your voice and kind of becoming who you are. How did your faith shift through all of this, from being like raised where your mom's teaching you fear to then like you're going to college and realizing there's a broader world out there? You're married, you're divorced, you're still searching out in the world too. Like how did faith evolve for you over the course of this?
Well, I can remember 7 years old. They had an altar call at my church. I think it was like in maybe Bible school or some such. And I can remember going forward to the altar, and we didn't do it the way you Baptists did it. We got down on our knees before an altar and put our heads down and prayed for God and asked God for forgiveness. Lots of weeping and wailing. Well, I did that, and I was 7 years old. But what I did was I asked Jesus to come into my heart, and that commitment right there has never ever faded for me. What I have problems with the religion is the almost worship of the Bible, the almost worship of church and church attendance, and rules and regulations and things that have absolutely squat to do with the teachings of Christ. And so I don't know when I finally I've kind of always felt in my heart that Jesus was all I needed. His example and his teachings were all I needed. And I didn't really, I studied the Bible, of course, and I used to be able to quote it chapter and verse. But I had someone one time tell me that we should worship the Bible. And I said, No. And, and it's written by men, and there's all kinds of things in it. And you want to read some dirty books? The Old Testament's full of dirty books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes and all of that, you just can't get. You can't get better than that. And I have tried to live my life that way. And I guess when I finally came out, I started going to Unity. There was a Unity church in Branson.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely loved it. And at some point, I had to tell my mom.
Oof.
Because she was saying, well, are you going to church? Why don't you go back to church? I said, Mom, I'm attending Unity.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, oh, no, oh, no, oh, no, oh, no. Basically, what she said was at the point where we had switched denominations and had gone for a couple of years to a Southern Baptist. It was, oh, no, oh, no, oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
Those people believe that you once saved, always saved. So it's, I don't know. It's just, it wasn't so confusing, I guess, but it was off-putting and, more than anything, I didn't want to hurt to my mom and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I loved them so much, and I did not want to hurt them and disappoint them. And so, of course, I never let them know that I was working for something different.
Mm-hmm.
And then they passed away. They were married 62 years and passed away on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They got married 6 weeks after their first date. So they spent.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to break their hearts or to disappoint them. I felt like I had disappointed my mom all my life.
Mm.
Just, I never could do anything right. And so I just didn't want that to be one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, after I kind of got used to I don't have my mommy and daddy anymore. Mm-hmm. I just started writing the stuff that I wanted to write. Mm. And that's when I wrote both of those books I published under pseudonyms in the April Grace books and everything. Mm-hmm. All the books that have all 31 or whatever, however many there is, came about after they passed.
Okay. Now, did you, when you started doing this, because you said you did a bunch of these under a pseudonym, but now you're doing stuff under your own name as well too, and you're just being fully you in this, or do you still do both?
There's one that I had sent to Keith, that first one I was telling you about, If I Make My Bed in Hell. Mm-hmm. It had been published before, but that publisher got mad at me and pulled off all my books that he had published and canceled my contracts and demanded money. Mm-hmm. So I could get my rights back. Okay. And that was one of those ugly things I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. And anybody wants to know any more about that, they can DM me.
That's true.
I'm not going to mention his name on the air. He's litigious. But, the person needs to stay away from those kind of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one particular agent, too, my first agent.
Now, for you said like you feel more free now to write. You're writing as yourself. You kind of you are just fully doing this. So, what areas? What are interesting you right now? Like, what are areas that of writing that are interesting you?
Well, I haven't had hardly any time to write in the last year and a half because I've been so daggum busy editing for that Keith.
For reference, yes. You talk about Choir Publishing. So yes, KD's an editor for Choir Publishing.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. But I've not had much time to do my own writing. But the book I want to work on is, and your book came out, and I saw it, and I thought, oh my goodness! But mine is about rapture. It happens, but it's not what people believe.
You're talking about this book here too, in case people need to know this book. Okay, yeah. So you're writing. Yes, we've been talking about this too. So you're talking about a book that is post-apocalyptic. The rapture's happened, and yeah. And
where I am in it right now, because I've not gotten very far in it, is they don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. These people who think these people who are thinking they're going to be raptured aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And so we're just now finding out. Yeah. What's going on? Why are we here?
I feel like that's a question for all of us right now.
Yeah.
Because it does at times. It feels like we're kind of, There is no tribulation. At least for me, the way I read scripture and stuff, I don't think there's a rapture. I don't think there's tribulation.
No.
And any of that stuff. But it does, if there was one, it does kind of feel like we are living through some sort of an idiotic tribulation.
If we're going to be in the tribulation, it's right now, as far as I'm concerned. The only thing
I just wish it was less stupid.
Off everybody's heads.
I know, but growing up, like if this was I always thought like the tribulation would be so much more interesting than whatever we have going on now. I'm like, this is just if someone was writing this, you'd be like, no, this is bad satire. This is stupid. Like this doesn't even make sense. In what? Why is the Antichrist orange? I don't even understand this. This makes no sense. It's a terrible book, hypothetically. But so we've talked about something too, and I love you've talked about your love of the Ozarks, your love of nature, and that I want you to talk more about this. That one of the things that you said, you experience God more through nature than through institutions and things like that too. And so, how do you make sense of that now? How is that showing up in your life?
I just continue to feel that way. I mean, I just can't go out in nature, and my very soul and mind is not focused on the blessedness of it all. Now, I gotta say, I don't like the snakes, and I don't like the poison ivy. True. The ticks and the chiggers.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I just don't understand how a person can look at the lakes and the mountains and the trees and the flowers and the dogs and the cats and not be so grateful and not feel connected to that. I've always felt connected to the everything, and especially to animals. It just, I can't be mean to them. I can't even eat them, so they get on my nerves sometimes, these guys here, because they're wandering in and out of my office right now acting like fools. But, I've always felt that way. I can remember my mom said she worked in the shoe factory in town, and they would have their windows open. And she said, I'd hear a bunch of yapping dogs, and I'd look up out the window, and there'd be Kathy surrounded by all the dogs. And it still is. The dogs just find me. But my husband's the same way.
I love that though, because I feel like I feel the same way, to where I feel like I've experienced transcendence way more in nature and outside of the church than I ever have inside of it. And it's always blows my mind for people that will say like the Bible, that will worship, like you mentioned, that worship the Bible or say that it's inerrant and things of that nature, somehow like do not pay attention to creation. You're caring for creation. It's just kind of one of those things like, okay, you have the words that you think are the words that matter more than any other words in history, but also you don't understand what they're saying, and you don't understand. Yeah.
You're saying
it's always fascinating. Yeah.
I'm referring to a Bible verse, one plucked out of some place and splattered right there to prove the point, is never going to work. It's never going to work. You got to look at the context. You got to look at the history. You got to look at the time and the person that wrote it. And it might make some sense, but it's not infallible.
Absolutely.
And it certainly isn't worshipful.
No. That is wild. Well, K.D., if people are wanting to find you, if they want to find your work, if they want to find your books, what is the best way for people to try to look you up?
Probably just come ahead and find me on Facebook, because there's something screwy with my website right now.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I got a note yesterday that said there was something that I needed to take care of, and I didn't even understand it. So I'm waiting until tomorrow when my husband gets home so he can kind of guide me through it. But he doesn't know any more than I do. But at least I can scream at him instead of just screaming at the dogs or whatever.
So they can find you, KD McCrite, KD McCrite is the way to find you on Facebook, and same for Amazon. Hey, if someone wants to look you up on Amazon, what's a good book to start off with? If someone's like, hey, I want to check out this choir book that KD has written, what would be a good one?
Okay, that choir book that I have written is called Epilogue. It's a wonderful story. It's a book about a book about a book. Or a story and then a story about a story. And it has a ghost in it, and it's got library in it, and it's got a young woman who has been suppressed all her life, and now she's on her own at the age of 22 with absolutely zero skills. And a man has been also, there's a man had abducted her at one point, and he's in prison now, but he's always a threat. And so there's that. And then her just learning how to survive in a world that's completely alien to her. There's that one. And then if you like snarky fun for adults and children, The Confessions of April Grace
Okay.
are wonderful. If you want to find another paranormal, it's called Doorway to Eden. It's about a haunted, not a haunted picture, but a cursed picture in which someone is trapped in there. And it's quite good. It's kind of romance. Also, it's got every good novel's got a little romance in it.
Got a little romance in it too.
Yeah,
Well, excellent.
I don't particularly like romance novels because there's not enough meat in there. I get tired of the
It depends on which romance novels. Certain ones have lots of meat in it, depending upon.
Yeah, I don't care about the heaving bosoms or the. I don't care about any of that. I don't want to know about that. I don't want to even think about that.
Honestly, I think you were the first person on the show to ever say the word turgid members, so I think that is you're the winner now.
Turgid members.
Well, excellent. KD, thank you so much for your time. And so, folks, check her out, KD McCrite. KD, thank you for your time, and we'll have you back on sometime soon. So thank you.
Let's do this again.
The end times are upon us. The signs are happening. The end is near, but don't panic. You may have missed the rapture, but there's still time to prepare for what comes next. Disasters, plagues, celestial malfunctions. Consider them friendly reminders. Now's the time to prepare. From homemade hazmat suits to heavenly currency and trustworthy prophets, this guide has you covered. Because when the heavens open and the world melts, belief alone won't save you. The Tribulation Survival Guide. How to stay alive when everything else is dead. Available now.
This Choircast podcast is being brought to you by Rituals for Heretics. For millennia, people have been meeting deep psychological needs through religious ritual and meditation practices. Rituals for Heretics takes rituals and meditation practices from all kinds of religions and deletes the God part of it while leaving the psychological work that is being done so that you can put whatever you believe or don't believe about God back into the ritual or meditation practices. Get your copy today on Amazon or wherever you purchase books.